Hey, welcome everybody to Spirituality Adventures. We're glad you're tuning into this episode. We are a viewer and listener supported podcast, so we really appreciate you listening, watching on YouTube. We really encourage you to subscribe to whatever platform you're using. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, or if you're on Apple or however you listen to a podcast, be sure and subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. Also, make comments if you like it and share it if you like it. We really need people to make comments and share the episodes that you like. And then also, if you're not already a supporter, we really would encourage you to go to spiritualityadventures.com and you can pick a tier, and we have bonus content for every type of giver. This is a nonprofit, so they're tax-deductible donations, but we do provide bonus content for those who are supporters. So be a part of the team, help support Spirituality Adventures, and we're so glad you're tuning into this episode. Well, hey, welcome to Spirituality Adventures. So glad you're tuning into this episode. I'm excited to have Tori Owens with us today.
Good
Tori,
morning.
thanks for joining us at
Absolutely.
Spirituality Adventures. Tori and I met a couple of years ago at our Open Relational Theology Conference out by Jackson Hole, Wyoming. We were at Grand Targhee Resort. And I heard her do a talk on Julian of Norwich, which she is working, that's her doctoral dissertation is on Julian of Norwich. And so that's what we're going to be talking about most today. But I wanted to get a little bit of background story. Some of you, I've had Jonathan Foster on here several times, and Tom Ord and Shailene Kendrick. And so that whole crowd of open relational theologians, Tori is in that mix of people. She also does a podcast with Jonathan because they're kicking off a new network of pastors and churches and theologians called
Curian Network. Yes.
Curian Network. And so they're doing a podcast with that as well. So you can check out Curian, C-U-R-I-A-N, Curian Network. All right. So a lot for post Eve. I don't know what to call the crowd that's gathering there. It'd be open relational process type people, I think, that are gathering together and building a network there.
Yeah, there's certainly an overlap for sure.
Yeah. So, Tori, give us a little bit of your, I love to get a little bit of your background, origin story, where you grew up, did you grow up in a faith family background? How in the world did you get into theology and Nazarene stuff and doctoral work? And, give us a little bit of what drew you to a world of theology and therapy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's been a little circuitous, the journey, right? So I grew up in a house. I have three brothers. I grew up in a house, obviously, but a house where we went to church. Went to a Nazarene church, and I think we started going there when I was 2 or something like that.
In Georgia?
No, in Ohio, Southwest Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah. So I grew up in Middletown.
Okay.
Ohio. And I don't believe either of my parents were churched. I do not believe either one grew up in any tradition of any kind. So it was an interesting thing that happened. So 2 years old, grew up in the church, was there every time the doors were open, right? Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, revivals, all the things, that whole thing, right? So that became family. There was really a family element there, and belonging and all of the wonderful things that come with that, for sure. It was obviously a very fundamentalist evangelical tradition, and in Southwest Ohio, just over the border from Indiana, pretty strict in many ways, like no cards, no movies, no, all the stuff, all the things, right?
A big, thick manual of disciplines, those.
Pretty much. Yeah. And we were pretty good about abiding by that. Yet at home, I think that it was much looser. It was kind of this wonderful complement to that.
Mm-hmm.
So there was dancing and all the stuff. My mom, I remember that, and all of her sisters. She has so many sisters and so many wonderful aunts and cousins. And we would always dance when we gathered together. So there was this wonderful complement to the fundamentalism of the tradition, which was lovely and probably what saved me, right? And allowed me to think in a different way and think outside the box in terms of just this that book and all of the stuff. So grew up in that, all of the everything, and then decided to go to seminary for grad school. And had my undergrad in systems analysis, and so I have this right brain, left brain kind of thing.
Where'd you do your undergrad?
Miami University in Oxford, Ohio.
Okay.
And so my undergrad's in systems analysis, calculus, programming, all the awesome things, right? And I love it. I dig it totally. But I could not imagine spending my life doing it. And went on to do grad work at the seminary and had my master's.
That seems like a big
kind of a jump.
Yeah. Did you feel some kind of a calling or something?
Oh, very much. I went on a mission trip. Well, it was, what was it called? Youth. I can't remember in the Nazarene Church what it was called, but you could sign up as a college student to go on these summer mission trips. And you would be gone for 6 to 8 weeks. And so I went to Portugal for a summer and met a really good friend there. And I was like, oh my God, I think I want to go to seminary. Like, I think I don't want to be a programmer. I don't want to be a systems analyst for the rest of my life. Yeah.
So were you thinking in the Nazarene Church, were you thinking you want to be a pastor or something?
I think I was thinking I was going to be a missionary.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Because for women, that was a good option, right? So in terms of service and vocation in the church, most of the time you were going to be a pastor's wife or a missionary if you're a woman, if you felt some kind of calling.
Yeah, interesting.
So I sure as heck wasn't thinking pastor's wife at the time because I wanted to do my own thing, right? And so that was the only kind of option in my head. I was like, oh, okay, let's try this.
Okay. So
went to seminary, ended up falling in love again with history, which had always been my first love anyway, and just adored history, all kinds of history. And then my prop, I was a teaching assistant with Paul Bassett, who was a professor there at NTS, and he was marvelous and wonderful, and took me under his wing and all the
America Nazarene Theological Seminary in Kansas City, folks. So yeah.
Yes, exactly.
You lived here in Kansas City for a little while.
I did. And maybe one of the craziest things I did was I was part of the singles group, right? So we gathered all these singles together during my time there, and I designed a scavenger hunt around Kansas City. And we had police involvement, like 3 different altercations with the cops that night. It was crazy. One guy got put in handcuffs, like it was nuts. We scaled the fence of NTS to gather items for the scavenger hunt. So that was kind of fun. And I got called into the dean's office for that. So that was a lot of fun. So a little bit of a rule breaker, even at NTS, where,
What church did you go to when you were?
I went to Blue Hills.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that. A lot of them went to college church, and a couple of the big ones, but yeah.
Yeah. I was at Blue Hills for probably about half the time there. And it was Reverend Lott. It was a Black church, and loved my time there and they just took me in, and it was a lovely experience. I learned so much. I really did. And they were quite patient with me and me wondering and asking questions and all the stuff. But I also ended up at First Church at the tail end. Yeah, with Middendorf. Yeah, pastor. Yeah. So that was a really good experience too. Yeah. He's awesome. Jess Middendorf. He's pretty cool.
I had a brother-in-law that started out Southern Baptist like I did, but then he went into the Nazarene movement, and he was at First Church for quite a while, and then ended up pastoring some Nazarene churches around the state of Missouri and stuff like that.
You've got these ties to the Nazarene Church too.
Yeah, for sure. I knew Keith Wright. Did you remember Keith?
Yes. Yeah. I didn't know him personally, but the name for sure.
He was kind of like I can't remember the title they give the people, like the regional overseer of the Kansas City area for.
Yeah, district superintendent.
Yeah,
maybe?
That's it.
Yeah, that's the name.
Bishop, what?
Yes. Kiss the ring. No, we're not going to. That's funny. Um, yeah, but it was at NTS, and then I decided to go on and pursue my PhD at Luther Seminary. And it was probably the latter half of my time at NTS and my time that year at Luther Seminary where I was really struggling with my sexuality and coming to terms with this is just who I am,
Mm.
right? And then what do I do with it in a very
Might explain that
conservative,
because I don't think the folks who are listening aren't going to,
yeah, the
what were you
struggle
saying?
of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
within the Church of the Nazarene, obviously I was going to hell in a handbasket being gay, right? So that's not an option.
Was that was that an ongoing, how long had you been
Mhm.
wrestling with that issue within your own?
I think that it was an evolution for me,
Hmm.
right? And here's how it showed up often is that because I have three brothers and I'm the only, only girl, I was doing everything they were doing. And so I had opinions and I had beliefs and I had all these things. And I had a very strong mom who was also doing that too, right? So I had this role model of a woman who was saying things sometimes in church opposed to like, no, I'm not going to wear a skirt in the middle of a blizzard. That's crazy. And that was a big deal back then in the 70s, late 70s. Like that was a big, huge deal in southwestern Ohio. That was anathema, right? For women. Like had to wear dresses all the time. So my mom was pushing back on these things so often, and I had that as a model, which was marvelous. So there were many times when I was dating at the seminary where I didn't have the time. I was like, I can't deal with you. This is too much. Like, if you think I'm going to sit in a pew as a pastor's wife, you're crazy. And that was what was expected because most of the men who were at the seminary were on the track to become pastors. And in relationship and dating, it was assumed as a woman, you were going to be a pastor's wife. That was your role. And so I had a whole discussion with one dude I was dating and saying, um, this makes no sense to me because I have my own life. And this is not what I'm called to do to sit in a pew. Like, this is not my job. So, what are you going to do with that? And he could not fathom a life where a wife wouldn't do that,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So those were some clues probably for me that I didn't pay attention to right away that this probably wasn't going to work. And I had my own opinions and my own ideas. Now, beyond that, I think that I tended to be so focused in on studies and everything else and doing what I loved and liked and everything that I kind of maybe I was asexual in a sense, right? But when I finally was that evolution of going, wait a minute, I think I'm gay. Like I think I'm queer. Like this is and queer wasn't the term back then, it's what I use now.
Hmm.
Um, but gay, I was like, oh my gosh, like there's no one to talk to about this. There's no one to I can't go find someone in the church to have this conversation with. All the people I knew were in the church, so that wasn't an option. And if I accepted that that was who I was and went with that, then what it would mean is probably getting booted out of the church, especially in any kind of leadership role.
Yeah.
So that was just not going to fly.
Mm.
So it was an internal struggle
Yeah.
and painful, lonely, all the things. Yeah. Yeah.
And that, oh man, you're in seminary and
I know.
wrestling with all this stuff. Oh my gosh, in a
It was
very
horrible. It was really
conservative.
horrible. Yeah.
So what took you into your career with therapy? Because that's your full time work and
That
job,
is
and
my
then
full-time gig.
your doctoral work on the side, right?
Yeah, for sure. So left the church, was not part of the church, left seminary because I was Luther Seminary in my doctoral work because this realization that this was not going to work and lost everything. I really did. I lost everything. So in the rebuild of it all, I ended up working at a domestic violence shelter. I moved to Georgia as a stained glass artist and started a stained glass studio. And then I ended up which saved my life, I will say, during that interim of Luther Seminary and then becoming, entering work as a therapist,
Hmm.
is there was that gap of putting pieces together that was metaphoric, but also, it was wonderful. It was
Interesting.
incredibly healing, right?
Cool.
And ended up becoming a children's advocate at a domestic violence shelter. And then, as I worked there in different roles, I decided to go back to school and become a therapist. So I still have ties to that
Mm.
shelter. I still meet with clients from that shelter 25 years later. And,
In
but that's
Georgia.
how, yeah, in Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious, because I need to jump into Julian
Yeah,
here, but,
we can talk about anything. Like seriously, I get Julian, but Julian is an important piece of this. But
yeah,
yeah, like
but I'm just curious, in your therapy work, are there a couple of therapy models that you like or work out of or have found extremely helpful? Like
I
I like DBT and
sure.
internal family systems helped me personally when I went through my
Mhm.
whole dark meltdown thing. I'm just curious if
Yeah.
there's some models that you have found or that you like working with or found helpful.
Mhm. I pull a lot from DBT
Okay.
because I'm also working the majority of my clients, but I think probably everybody walking on the planet has trauma, right?
I think
So,
so.
I mean, I think if you're human, you kind of can't get away from it.
I think so.
And many times we don't know that's what it is, and we don't know to name it that,
Mhm.
or our reactions that we have adapted to the trauma, maybe maladaptively at times, right? But we've tried to cope. And I think that DBT in particular has been helpful in giving people skills.
Mhm.
So many ways, just these concrete skills, but also the mindfulness aspect
Yeah.
of it to
That,
stay really grounded and rooted, right?
that's what got me into mindful meditation.
Yeah.
Sure, was the DBT stuff, and then
Yeah.
yeah.
And it changes the wiring of our brains. It changes who we are. It does. It's effective. It works. And so DBT for sure, and sometimes family systems,
Hmm.
internal family systems, because with trauma, obviously there's dissociation. There are other things where there are parts that, that are forming and breaking, but all of that happens. I think that can happen with anyone, these parts. And I love the idea of internal family systems, especially trained as a systems analyst. Like it's
Yeah.
like I love looking at things systematically like that. So I pull from a lot of things. I'm eclectic, and most therapists are. So we'll pull from whatever modality works for that person that we're sitting with. I've played guitar with some people because that's what works. I've sung
Oh.
with some people. I've pulled in movies, books, like whatever works.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So, what drew you to Julian of Norwich and the mystics? Give a little bit of background because it sounds to me like you're thick into the mystics right now. But
I am.
what drew you there? What?
I'm totally in it.
Uh,
There are a few things. The first, in terms of my own experience, is while I was at Luther, there was a little Episcopalian church right outside the boundary of Luther Seminary, right? So there's these grounds, and then there was this little church. And I would go to that Episcopal church some Sundays. And in my darkest times, my absolute depths of depression, all this is I'm struggling with my sexuality. I'm realizing all these things, like all this stuff is piling on. I would go there, and I swear to you, every Sunday that I went, for whatever reason, the rector of the church, he would quote at the end and say, "All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well."
uh,
Now, I don't know that I had a memory of Julian of Norwich prior to that. Like maybe there was a mention in history, but there wasn't a lot of focus. And in the Nazarene tradition, we're not really pulling stuff from the mystics, right? We're not talking about that too much, anything weirdly, and which I think is strange because it's also about experience, which I think in the Nazarene church might have been a good thing. But I can get into that a little bit more later. But for me, it was the first time I think that her words resonated. And I think it had to do with my own suffering
mm,
in particular. There was something about that hope in that phrase, all shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well, in the midst of this deep depression,
mm.
that I was like holding on to that like an anchor. Yeah. And it took some time for me to take a deeper dive into her.
Mm.
But man, that got me through.
Mm.
That got me through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you the mystics
Mhm.
are a big category, right? I
They
mean, there's
are.
Christian mystics and there's mystics in the other faith traditions as well. What would you say is like, if you had to just put a simple definition to what is a mystic?
I
What do these mystics have in common? You know.
I yeah, I think they're very much seeking union with God. I do. And that's a traditional definition
Yeah.
of a mystic for sure, right? I think there's something more there going on though than just that. If I was going to expand it and kind of connect it to ORT or process, open and relational theology or process, I would say there's something deeply experiential happening,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that draws me to the mystics um, for this is there's something, and I talked about it this last time at OrtCon this in July. You were there for that one too. Um, there's something in their response and their daringness to be deeply experiential, I think deeply intuitive,
Mm-hmm.
which very much often, if you look at history and you look at some examples, Julian, but if you're looking like at Catherine of Siena, she's calling out the Pope, Gregory, in the 1300s. She's saying, dude, you got to get out of Avignon. You cannot be in the back pocket of the French king. This doesn't look good. This is not okay. It cannot look like you are being led around by the French king. Like you have to have your own authority, basically. You need to get back to Rome, like get back, right? Catherine of Siena is a mystic. She's beautiful writings, but she's also calling out the church. And I think many mystics are doing that. So the definition of union with God, yes. Deeply experiential, yes. But I think mystics are incredibly daring
Mm.
and they are rebels and they are weirdos and they go against the grain and they are often calling the church back to love and back to itself, I
Wow.
think. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome group.
Yeah. So Julian, let's do a quick historical sort of theological context of Julian.
Sure. Uh-huh.
By the way, have you been to Norwich?
I have not, but it's
I
one of the
haven't
places I
either.
want to go.
Well, after hanging out with you, I want to go. I'm like,
I know.
I already think I got to get back there because I've been to England and Scotland, but yeah,
Yeah.
I have not been to Norwich. But give us a little. So
We
Julian,
should
for
take a
those of you who don't
like
know,
road trip. We need to just do go.
oh, wouldn't that be a blast?
That'd be awesome. Theological
Um,
road trip.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So she was, for those of you who don't know, Julian was born 1342
hmm
and died in 1417.
Mhm.
And this is in the, well, give us a little historical context with this is during the Black Plague time. And
Yeah.
give
I
us,
think she was I
give
think
us a
she was
little
like
bit of
seven.
theological, historical
Absolutely.
context.
Yeah. I think at the time, like when she was seven, I think that's when the first wave of the Black Plague moves through Europe. And the Black Plague was devastating. There were multiple waves of the Plague that were just wiping out just hundreds of thousands of people. Devastation. Some estimates are like half
Of
of,
population in big
yes,
cities.
it
Like
was
think about
awful.
COVID
I know.
and then losing half the people in Kansas City or something during COVID or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
horrendous.
Like, yes, just wipe out. And then there were like these mini waves within the big waves. So I think probably there were times where they thought it was done and over with in her lifetime. And then there would be another devastating wave that would come through unexpectedly, right? Like who knew? I think also at the time, probably theologically, there was this sense that, oh my gosh, what awful things have we done, tying the Black Plague and all the deaths to humanity's sin, and oh, we have screwed this up and this is our punishment, and all the things like flagellants were rising up, groups that would walk around like beating themselves and like the cat and nine tails and all the things, right? Doing all of that. self-flagellation as a form of repentance and penance and all of it. But I think probably overall theologically, there's this mindset that somehow creation and humanity are sinful and fallen. And there is Julian in the midst of this. And if you read her, like, it's not that. It's the complete opposite of that, for sure. Like, it's amazing, actually. Um, and I'll get into that. Yeah.
It's truly amazing.
It
I was
is.
just speed reading Mirabai Starr's
Yeah,
translation. I'm just like, holy crap, you know?
I know. I know. Like, when you know the context,
Yes.
that you're going, wait a minute, this is such a hopeful, loving, co-suffering.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on here?
It's really interesting.
It is. It's fascinating. And then Julian is an anchoress, which I'll move into that because
Yeah. Because I had to look that one up, and I should have known, but like I was like, what in the heck's an anchorist?
I know.
But then it didn't sound very fun to me when I read about it.
No, it doesn't. No, it
It's
doesn't.
like, what?
Like,
I want to be
what is
Francis out in the nature, you know. I don't want to be stuck
wandering,
in
right?
a little room. God.
For
But yeah,
sure.
tell us about that.
Yes, and I have to tell you that I have this story that I've thought of often of the mystics and the saints like hanging out together at dinner and interacting. And one of them, okay, so I put Anne Bancroft as Julian of Norwich, like
Oh.
chain smoking, just sitting there chain smoking, going,
Or it could be Joni Mitchell even, you know, like
yeah, like there's this window that the anchoress is literally walled into a little cubicle next to the church, and that's being an anchoress. And you have to it doesn't just automatically happen. There's this testing period, and you have to go through all these things right before everyone agrees that that's what you're going to do and all the stuff.
the
So you're literally
were women only.
no men as well, and it comes
Men
from
and women were
yeah,
anchorists.
men and women, and were anchorites. And it comes from the Egyptian, where you would be a desert anchorite and you would be out in the desert by yourself.
It's like a monastic type
It's
thing
absolutely
where
monastic.
yeah.
Yes,
But
very
this
much.
was connected to the church in a town versus
Yes,
out in the desert somewhere or something like that.
you got it. And then they had a little window that they could watch the altar during services. And there was a window that was out to the city.
Hmm.
So people could come up to the window, which is why Anne Bancroft chain smoking. Because I'm thinking of my time as a therapist, right? And just sitting there and having an open window to people coming up to you. And she must have known everybody's business, is what I think probably was the case.
It's interesting.
Is she was on this very busy road, side road, and there would be ships coming into port and all this down this river. And I think she probably was listening in on and heard so much activity and everything, which is fascinating to me just as a people watcher. She must have understood people in this remarkable way. Um, the other thing too, like, and I was thinking about that you talked about Francis, but that story of the mystics sitting around together, I think of Francis like doing mushrooms, and he's out in the woods like, whoa, he's like this psychedelic stuff, like super happy. And there I can see these people at a table, and I have all the others like these characteristics of these other people. But yeah, those two in particular, I have very clear ideas of how they would interact at the table, but Francis for sure, like, some shrooms, right? But it cracks me up. Um, but yeah, I think that this commitment to being anchored, and I often thought, oh my God, this is solitude. You're anchored to this, you're alone, you're committed to this lifetime of prayer and service to the people in this community. But I think it was more than that. With her insight and this window into and watching and hearing other people, I think she was deeply the center of this community.
Hmm.
Marjorie Kempe, who I think wrote the first autobiography, this woman wrote first autobiography, she writes of going to visit Julian of Norwich and seeking counsel from her.
Hmm.
So she travels. This is like, here she is in the 1300s, late 1300s, early 1400s, making a journey to see Julian intentionally,
Hmm.
to seek out her advice.
So interesting.
These two mystics, right? Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
It's crazy to think about.
It reminded me. I have a friend. Richard Rohr
Yeah.
had a big help put my faith back together again after I kind of went through a really dark spell. And I haven't met Richard yet, but I actually have several friends that know Richard really well. And but anyway, one of my friends that doesn't know Richard well, but had loved Richard, this was several years ago, I guess. He knew that Richard was down in New Mexico and knew and so he just showed up. He didn't know Richard at all, and he showed up, and there was like a little office, I guess, where there was a gal working there. I've never been there, and he just goes into the office and he says, "Hey, I'm a big fan of Richard Rohr's and just wanted to see if he was around, and she was like, "Well, if you just walk down this road, he's at home right now. He's in the house. Just go down there and knock on the door."
Oh God, that's awesome.
So my friend, he just walks down there. He knocks on. Richard's there. He invites him in, and he talked for an hour.
Oh my goodness.
And when I was reading about Julian and Norwich, with people just walking by and seeking counsel, and it's isn't that interesting? That
it's fascinating. And I think like I went through the living school connected to Richard's Center for Action and Contemplation. Okay. Yeah. And I've been down there, the store and the cottonwood tree in the back and everything is beautiful. But the Universal Christ, Richard's Universal Christ, and his most recent book, Tears of Things.
Yes.
Beautiful stuff. I mean, and so it feels process.
Yeah, for sure.
It falls into that, doesn't it? But also this call to return to love. Like Richard is deeply, I would assume he would identify as being a mystic, and this connection and union with God, but also this return to deep love as a message to the church that we have to return to that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful stuff.
Yeah, so that's let's talk about these revelations of divine love. Mm-hmm. Tell us about what happened to Julian.
Yeah.
And these revelations. Give us a little insight.
She was like, what a woman. Like she was incredibly ill. She went through some type of illness, and we don't know what that illness was. We don't know if it was the Black Plague. We don't know what in the world it was. And this was before she became an anchoress, right? Before she was walled in. And maybe that was part of the decision to do that. I don't know. It came from that. But she was she had an illness, and the priest came, and she was basically meditating on the crucifix in front of her that the priest was holding. And she had 16 visions. So she had 15 visions one day, and then that night she ends up surviving everything, the illness, miraculously. Like she couldn't move her body or anything. And then slowly all of the feeling returns to her. She sleeps on it, and she goes, "Dude, I can't be talking about these revelations. Like people basically, no, I'm not going to voice this. I'm not going to do anything with this," because I don't know if she thought people would think she was crazy or what, but she decided, nope, I'm not doing it. She had another vision basically saying, no, this was legit. Like I came to you and I talked to you and I revealed myself to you. So just when she had this doubt, she had another vision. She ends up sitting on it. She writes it down. She records what's happened in these visions. And it's a pretty short summary compared to the second half or the longer text. So there's a short text and a longer text. The short text is basically a rundown of these visions. She sits on it for 20 years. She doesn't do anything with it, right? She contemplates. And I think there's this patience, this marvelous patience, this reflection of, I'm just going to chew on this, and I'm going to take my time, and I'm just going to see what comes of it. And so the longer text is basically her commentary or reflection of the visions over these 20 years.
Mm.
She never released it out in any kind of way. She didn't tell anybody about it. I think it was hidden under her bed. And then the nuns serving her, because she I think had one or two servants that would come in and take care of her needs and all the stuff, give her food, empty the probably all the the bodily stuff, and they found it and they took it, and they're the ones who then, and I think it emerged within a monastery of nuns. Those writings began to become evident, and people started talking about them all those years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. So I want to get into one of the things that Tori points out as she goes back. So we're in this community of theologians and thinkers called Open and Relational Process.
Yeah.
Theologians or philosophers.
Right.
And you really point out how, Julian kind of caught on to a lot of the themes that we talk about,
I think so.
all these years ago. And so I want to get into some of those, kind of tick down on some of those. But
Please.
the one thing I wanted to ask you about when I was kind of reading some of this, it seemed like to me, some of her comments, like it's almost like the Trinity, which, if you grow up in evangelical circles or even conservative Catholic circles, it's almost like you almost think the whole Trinity is masculine, right?
It's so true, isn't it? It does have a masculine bent.
I mean, God's a he, Jesus is a he. And then we should have at least caught on that the Holy Spirit, every time it shows up, pneuma, and is a feminine, ruach, feminine. The Hebrew and the Greek term for spirit is feminine.
Yeah.
But we didn't ever bring that out.
We didn't do that.
Ignored that.
Yes.
But when I was reading Julian, it's almost like she enveloped the whole Trinity in motherhood.
Doesn't she? It's so beautiful.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
And even the Jesus connection.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was like almost like this whole idea of the motherhood of God that infuses and envelops in the womb of the Trinity, or I almost like saw the Trinity as in the womb of the feminine.
Yes. There is something important about the womb that she continues to mention. And that she's naming not, and I love that, like the Trinity is engulfed, kind of like is wrapped up in or enfolded into the feminine in this beautiful way. I couldn't agree more with that. I hadn't thought about the Trinity and masculine, but very much, right? But it's Jesus she calls mother. It's not, it's not father, father, mother switched out. It's Jesus as mother. And that she's talking often of Jesus, like the womb of Jesus and how he holds us in the womb, and we're birthed out of that womb, but we're also protected in that womb. And there's something beautiful, just so rich and beautiful about that, and comforting, being held in that. That I think it just gives a different take. And for many of us, just as women, obviously it's a lovely image and I so appreciate it just as a woman that we're talking about women in such positive ways and beautiful ways. But I think it's also so important for people who might have had difficult experiences with men, whether that's men or women or anyone, that to have this other image of God, man, how expansive is that? How healing that can be to have these other images before us than just Father, Son, Spirit in a masculine sense, like bigger than, right, gender. It's beautiful. It's rich. And what strikes me even more about that and the importance of this in relation to the historical and theological context, like the messaging up to now is that humanity is sinful, that the flesh is sinful, that creation is sinful, and more often than that, obviously the theological statement is that Eve is sinful and has begun everything in terms of original sin, right? Not once does Julian speak ill of women, not one time. She does not talk about Eve. She does not talk about in any negative sense how the flesh is sinful, nothing.
Mm.
That is not part of her revelations. It's beautiful,
Mm.
especially in that historical context.
Yes, like, yeah. I mean, and when you grow up, like, I grew up Southern Baptist, right? So,
Mm.
like, we were like taught that Catholics are worshiping Mary.
Same in Southwestern Ohio, we thought that too about
Yeah.
Catholics. Yeah.
So that was all negative, right?
Yes.
And yeah, Mary's not God, all these kind of things.
Yes.
You can't worship Mary and all this, and that's why Catholics are so messed up. Anyway, they worship the saints, they worship Mary, and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And this is, obviously, I had to rethink all of these kinds of things through First of all, the thing that helped me was that the Spirit was always showed up feminine, in the feminine form, in the language of Hebrew and Greek.
Mhm.
And then I went over to Ethiopia years and years ago.
Oh, how cool. That's awesome.
And I mentioned to you, Ethiopia has the Queen of Sheba hooked up with Solomon and had a kid. That became the first king, Menelik, a king of Ethiopia. So there's a strong stream of Judaism in Ethiopia that dates back, to Solomon, to the Queen of Sheba. And then when Jesus that was one of the early disciples, followers of Jesus were Ethiopian. And so Christianity went to Ethiopia very early. It's one of the oldest Ethiopian Orthodox churches. And they believe they have the Ark of the Covenant, but in their theology, they see the Ark of the Covenant, which contains the 10 Commandments. They equate that to the womb of Mary,
Oh,
which
wow.
contains the Word of God. And in every Ethiopian Orthodox church, there's a replica of the Ark of the Covenant, which is symbolic of the womb of Mary.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And so when I was reading Julian and thinking about that history of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, how Mary unfolds, it's, I don't know, it's a beautiful thing. And the sacred feminine, so many people have had to move outside the Christian tradition to find the sacred feminine in other traditions. But then here we have this rich tradition within the Christian mystics of this motherhood of God. And so I've found it very rich to
I love
rethink
it.
all of these things.
And I think there's something, I think what the Catholic Church did with Mary is offer this beautiful balance, right, between the masculine and the feminine. That's how they brought in the feminine, which is beautiful, right? And I love that. They found, like, it was there anyway, right, in terms of the feminine nature of the Spirit and all of that. But they made sure there was this balance.
Yeah.
And I think that matters, to have that balance between the masculine and the feminine, and this balance of imagery, and this there's something so important for all of us that we see that and we hear that.
Yeah, especially in our American context right now. I grew up Southern Baptist, and my Southern Baptist brothers have all of a sudden eliminated all women from leadership roles, pastoring roles. Evidently, Al Mohler just determined that women can't even teach the Bible on podcasts now.
Wow.
Isn't that special?
And what it's awful. And maybe this is the culmination, right? Of when we're talking about, at least when I'm talking about my tradition in Church of the Nazarene, this evangelical fundamentalist tradition, and you're talking about Southern Baptists and all that maybe this is the culmination of, this is where we end up when we do not have the masculine and the feminine represented here in this balance, and talking openly about the Spirit as feminine and Jesus as mother and all of the things, is that we are going to end up completely
in white patriarchy ruling the world.
Yes. That's where we end up.
This is where you end up.
Yeah.
And how horrible that ends up being, it's just like, in so many ways.
It
Okay,
is.
so
It is.
well, let's talk about the revelations of divine love. One of the
Mhm.
you start pointing out how Julian kind of if she were with us today, she would probably kind of like some of the open relational process
She
theology things.
might.
Yeah.
I think she might totally dig it.
So let's tick off a couple of points here. One,
Sure.
relationality. Well, we
Yeah.
want to start with love and end with love, right? Love,
Yeah,
love,
yeah.
love.
It's all over the
Everything
place.
was encompassed in love.
So true.
But
She
really,
begins and ends there. The reason, the purpose, why, the how, the what, it's all love.
yeah, and in the to put that like backdrop, here's the Black Plague. Everybody's blaming Jews. Jews are
Yeah.
being scapegoated. It's their fault, or it's our
Mhm.
fault. It's creation's fault. All this kind of stuff. And then in the context of all of that, here she comes up with this. I mean, this wow, like this effervescent
It is.
vision of love encompassing everything.
Yes.
It's all love.
It's so beautiful and it's such a it's it's the antithesis of what is happening. It's miraculous. And love is the connection. Love is the connection. And I think of Christ as love, and then Christ being the hub, the connector to all things,
Mm,
right? In this gorgeous way that I'm connected to Christ, therefore I'm connected to you. And somehow in that context of I don't want to be near anyone. I can't be near anyone because you might have the plague and all this devastation that's been caused and finger pointing and scapegoating and all this. Somehow she says, no, I'm connected to Christ. Christ is connected to all of us. Well, she starts with that. She flips it. She says, Christ suffers with all of us in love. And then we suffer with Christ as long as Christ suffers, which also means that we suffer with everyone that Christ suffers with.
mm.
Oh my God. Like, what a marvelous, beautiful counterpoint to what is happening that has nothing to do with scapegoating, complete opposite of scapegoating, looking at connection and relationality rather than scapegoating. Yeah,
Wow.
beautiful.
It is. It is. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I mean, in a certain sense, love. I mean, that is one of the things that love does is it suffers with, alongside,
Yeah.
intermingled with all those that you love. How could you not, when your
Mhm.
loved ones go through pain and suffering, how would you not be intermingled with all of that, right?
Yeah.
So when your kids go through that, I'm just thinking in spiritual kids too, like
Yes.
every every person on this planet being
Mhm.
birthed.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And then she talks about the well and the woe, right? She talks about
yeah.
God holds us in the well and the woe.
And tell what
And
that is. That's an ancient
it is. It means
thing.
in good times and in the suffering, God holds us. God doesn't put us down there. That suffering is not some punishment that's happening, that God actually holds us in the same way that he holds us in the good. And I think there's that too, that reminder that that's also what we do for one another in the well and the woe, right?
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
It's interesting because the theology that she was facing, the predominant theology was, a punishing God who's
Yeah.
punishing all these people with the Black Plague, right?
Mhm.
And then she comes out with this idea of, well, really, this if you sin, if you hurt yourself or somebody, if you do harm, that that this that in and of itself
Mhm.
is the punishment.
Yes.
Everything else is wrapped in love, and even that is wrapped in love.
Yes.
So, in other words, yeah, we might do some things that harm one another, but even that's wrapped in love,
Yes.
and everything's enveloped in other words, she's coming up. Like I remember when I was preaching at when 9/11 happened,
Mm.
um, and the world was saying America was being punished for homosexuality.
Yeah.
That was one of the big messages that came out
Sure
after
was,
9/11
wasn't
in America.
it? Yeah.
Or we
Yeah.
got to kill all the Muslims because they're the enemy.
Yeah.
Those were the two main messages that came
They
out
were.
from pulpits across America.
Yeah.
And there were a few of us out there going, well, if Muslims are our enemy, then we ought to love them.
Yes.
Which I didn't even want to say they're our enemies, but I was just like saying, but if that's what you think, then what did Jesus tell us to do? We should love them.
Exactly.
And then the other thing was, no, God's not punishing America for anything. It's like, but I almost like the messages that I was trying to come out with. I preached a whole series on grace and love right after 9/11,
Amazing.
and
Yay.
I think that's what Julian was doing in her context of
She
all
was.
of this mean punishing God theology. And then she was like birthing this.
I love it.
Yeah,
I think she was. And then to have sat on it for 20 years, for no one to have read it for 20 years. Like, oh my gosh. Um, but yes, I think she was responding to her immediate context, and gorgeous,
yeah, it's beautiful.
healing, hopeful.
One of the things you bring out is wanting,
I know. Isn't
unitive,
that the cool? It's the coolest
non-duality.
term.
Is that your term or her term?
No, it's Julian's term, wanting. Isn't it
Wanting.
also?
Yeah,
It's,
tell us about that.
I dig it.
Is she
Yeah,
came up with that? Was
she
that
did.
like a term that?
She making up words all over the place. She's a perfect word person. I'm serious. She's just making up words. And Tom would love that, Tom Moore, because
Right.
Tom is all about making up words.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's her term, wanting.
Wanting.
And I think it's so gorgeous because we talk about, again, we go back to the mystics and that union with God. That's what she means, wanting, like this oneness,
Mm.
this togetherness. But I love it even more than union for some reason, because it's different and it's not that term that we've heard all the time. Like it captures you in a different way, doesn't it? Like you kind of take notice in a different way, wanting. She also came up with the word enjoy.
Mm.
That's her word. She invented it. It's crazy.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So it's amazing.
So what do you tell me what you think her? I don't want to dig too. I don't want to put anything in. What am I trying to say here? I'm trying to think of what do you think her ontology was when she talked about wanting. Ontology being,
Yeah.
how did she think about oneness? Was it an ontological oneness with God? Was it a relational oneness? Was it a substantive oneness? Was it a
Hmm.
um
I,
how did she deal with diversity next to oneness? I'm just curious how
I
she.
don't know, because
I'm just curious.
obviously being a nun first
Yeah.
and then becoming an anchorite, right?
Right.
I'm sure there wasn't much diversity. I'm
Mhm.
just thinking like that's probably a pretty small world,
Mhm.
which is also remarkable in the expansiveness of her writing and her view of God and love.
Mhm.
That there are these limitations just naturally historically around probably what she understood, right? Yet
Would she
my
have seen
instincts,
that to borrow other people's language, would she have seen that we all have a spark of divinity within us? Would she have come against Augustine's original sin idea?
she
Would
didn't talk
she,
about original sin,
right? Would she
and
have
she
been more
didn't
like
talk
a
about
Matthew
sin
Fox
much.
original blessing kind of idea?
I think it was probably more that, because when she talked about creation, when she talked about humanity, it was in the sense of goodness, which is one of the points I also make that connects to Ort, Open and Relational Theology, is she begins with this goodness of things.
Hmm. Hmm.
So she doesn't come out and say spark. She doesn't come out and say any of those things. She does not discuss original sin. And she doesn't discuss sin much, except as it's a thing.
Hmm.
But it's more like what you talked about earlier, that it's more about this, what happened happens and what it does to us
Right.
rather than its own essence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say it's relational
Mm-hmm.
because of how she's talking about Christ as mother, how she's talking about connection and relationship, how she's talking about love.
Mm-hmm.
And it begins with love, it ends with love, love is in the middle. I think what she's trying to say in this is there's a real relationality here. That would be kind of my gut reaction because she's not talking often of sin. There's one kind of story that she's talking about, and Jesus mentions sin in it, but it's still not the highlight of the text.
Mm-hmm.
Like on the whole, when you walk away from it, that's not what you're thinking about. So I don't know
Yeah.
ultimately, except what comes across when you close the book is very much these images of relationship, of connection, of the image I come up with is a bike, a wheel, and a hub, and Christ is that hub. And then here we all are. She doesn't use that, obviously, but that's kind of what I think is that I'm connected and we're all connected. And he is the connector, or Christ is mother, she is our connector. And suddenly, like, oh, okay, it's going to be okay. It's good. And we're holding each other in the good times and in our sufferings. And again, that co-suffering is empathy.
Mm.
Um, so it's deep relationality.
Yeah. Love that. You mentioned enfolding
I know.
equaling panentheism.
Yeah.
You might tell a lot of people might not know what we mean by panentheism, and then how did her concept of enfolding relate to that?
Yeah, that panentheism is that God, not that God is in all things, and it's kind of more of this concept of God holding all things, right? That's kind of what I think about is God holding all things. And for Julian, she constantly uses this term enfolding, 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 and unfolding. So this becoming unfolding, like things are always unfolding. And she's right. She uses that term everywhere. Also the enfolding. One of the most beautiful um, images and there's so much, her writing, when I think about it as an artist, like I instantly have these images that pop in my brain, and I can envision like what she's writing. And she talks about she's holding this hazelnut and this tiny little hazelnut, and she's asking God, right, about this, and God is saying, I'm in this too. Like I am in things and everything all the way down to this hazelnut, right?
That
I
is
hold
interesting.
everything. Yeah.
That is a fascinating thing. That I've noticed that, like in Richard Rohr, like like if you're wrestling with God or something, he says just start out with something
Very small.
very specific that you love,
Hmm.
like maybe your dog. Like he'll use his dog as an example, right? And then
Yeah.
and then explore what that love is in that dog, and then
Hmm.
that opens up to everything.
Yeah.
I've heard him talk like that. Here
Yes.
she takes an
It's a hazelnut.
hazelnut,
Yeah.
but within that hazelnut
Hmm.
is the whole world.
It is. I got it here. Let me see if I can find it because
Reminds
it's
me
so
of Men in
beautiful.
Black. Remember Men in Black when it had that little ball on that dog that
Yes.
and it contained the whole universe.
Yes, it is like that. It very much is like that. Totally. Yeah, that's hilarious. I'm not going to be able to think about that. It's hilarious. But he says, then he showed me a small thing the size of a hazelnut nestled in the palm of my hand. And it goes on, and it's like, what can this be? And the answer came to me. It is all that is created. Like everything is in this, all this experience all the way down, right? It's so process in so many ways, Julian,
let,
a
let,
precursor.
talk about that experience all the way down,
Mhm.
because talk as a therapist, people get disconnected from their own bodies, from
Oh,
their
they
own
do.
intuition. I don't think Catholics and evangelicals have helped by teaching original sin and you're a dirty, rotten sinner, and so you can't trust your own body, your own intuition. I mean that original sin idea, I think, hurts us on multiple levels,
I
actually.
think so. It
And
does.
and so,
Yeah.
um, what what in her, this beginning experience, intuition, trusting your body,
Mhm.
that, even from a therapist angle, that becomes a part of the healing process, right? When you
It
begin to
does. It's one of the
trust your
first,
body again.
yeah, it's one of the first things that I focus on because many times when we've experienced a trauma, and we all have, all of us have, it's whether or not we name it that or not, is that there is a disconnect that happens, right? This internal implosion happens where you disconnect from yourself. So you disconnect from mind, body, spirit. Boom. And that's trauma. That's traumatic when that happens. We're not meant to be disconnected from ourselves. One of the things I see in working with clients who are coming out of intimate partner violence in particular, which is a majority of my clientele, is that what happens is this deterioration. But I think it happens, and it happened for me in my tradition. And I'm hearing you, like in your own experience, you probably, you felt that as well, that disconnect from yourself means you're not trusting your intuition, you're not trusting this messaging that your body is giving you, which is very real and important, intelligent information. Like our bodies telling us things is a form of intelligence. Our intuition is a form of intelligence. Might not be here, it might not be up in the head, but we're receiving all this vital information that matters deeply. I think one of the reasons I love Julian and I was drawn to her, and I'm drawn to the mystics in particular, is they are theopoets,
Mm,
right? They're
mm,
theopoets, and that term comes out of process
mm.
theology. And theopoetics, and Catherine Keller, you can do reading on that, theopoetics and everything. And Tom mentions it, I think, in his most recent documentary, Seer. But theopoetics, if I had to define what that was, it's talking about theology, but not worrying about the words and not worrying about having to say academically, like using the right terminology and having to use the right theological premise and having to make a debate and an argument and all this kind of stuff, right? Which is very Western European white male, for sure.
Aristotelian. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Every PhD program, you have to study Aristotelian logic and all
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Sure. So theopoetics is saying, no, let's be on this edge of this where we might not be quite sure, we might not be using the right terminology, we might not, but we're going to be really open and risky and vulnerable in how we're talking about things. And I think it's one of the reasons I love the mystics is
Mm,
because to do that, you have to trust your intuition.
mm,
You have to trust that something else is going on. And man, every mystic I read, like they're playing outside the box.
mm,
They're out of bounds in what they're saying most of the time or what they're daring to speak.
mm,
But it is the very thing that's needed. And so trusting your gut, trusting your instincts, inhabiting your person, inhabiting the body is, I think, one of the first steps to then begin to move out into this really daring, risky way of living that is very much not the heteronormative approach, right?
yeah.
That I think very often the church, and now where we're ending up in terms of white nationalism and all of the things and back to patriarchy, all the stuff, like that's this heteronormative kind of thing.
Mm,
And the mystics and what I'm encouraging in the queerness and the weirdness and all the stuff, like to be queer and to be weird and to be a mystic means you have got to trust something that's different than what you're hearing from the outside world. You've got to dare to be different. You've got to dare to say the thing out loud that's really super scary to say, but I think is the thing to say. It's
wow.
that. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I felt that when I ended up questioning everything I'd ever believed, and then I felt guilty for doing that.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, because the shame
Isn't it
box was
horrible?
so tight, and then, but I couldn't hold on to it. And
No. No, but I can relate to that shame. Like that it keeps you boxed in even more. Then you're thinking outside, and then you're like, "Oh my gosh, I got to run back into the shame box." That's like, holy shit, I'm saying I'm thinking something I shouldn't be thinking.
Oh
But
my God.
yeah, it's a struggle.
Yeah. So let's close with a thought on the third. You pose a question, a third way.
I do.
What is? Give us, and you made up a couple of words yourself.
I did make up a word. I totally made up a word.
Let's wrap
Absolutely.
with
yeah.
that.
So I think that Julian is very much about non-duality, right? As much as she can be coming out of that particular era and all of the things. And she's talking about wanting, but she's also talking about Jesus as mother and all of these things. So she's constantly challenging everything. Traditionally, in terms of mysticism in particular, mystical theology, there have been two ways of understanding or classifying mystics. One has been cataphatic, the other is apophatic. So cataphatic is more of these affirmative things we can say about God. And then apophatic is all the things we can't say about God that we don't know. It's kind of like the negative space, right? And I am suggesting that there is a third way, a middle way that is called amophatic, or that we know God via love. And that's one of the ones mentioned in cataphatic, that, understanding God as love. But I feel as if it could move into its own category. And there are many mystics who would fall into this, and Julian is one of them. So that will be the topic of my dissertation, is talking about that new term and that new understanding, and why it would be important to know God via love. And I think it has implications about how we know one another and how we're known. So I think there's a ripple effect from that. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I like it.
It's a little cheeky, maybe, after a couple thousand years of, cataphatic and apophatic, but I'm okay talking about it because I think it matters.
Yeah. Well, I love this, and by the way, this will come out before you arrive in Kansas City. So you're gonna
Yes.
be in Kansas City.
I am.
In just a few weeks.
Yeah, it's in August.
Right.
Yeah.
August 9th.
I think so.
It's the Sunday.
Yeah.
So if you're listening and you're in Kansas City, you could pop in at Living Water Christian Church, and Tori will be doing a talk on Julian of Norwich at the church. And then we're also going to do a Dirty Dogma night at Greenwood Social Hall with my friend Calvin Arsinia, and that'll be a Monday night talk where we just meet and dig in more.
That'll be fun
in a deeper way. And we call it Dirty Dogma because we want to be outside the box.
Absolutely. So. And Julian is certainly outside the box.
Right.
And we are. So that's perfect. Yeah. Good.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being on our show, Spirituality Adventures. And you have a website. If people do you do teletherapy as well? Or
I do. Most of what I do is telehealth. Yeah, the majority of my, even though everybody, it's all around the state of Georgia. Yeah, I'm doing.
Yeah. So what's your website?
I have ToriOwens.work, but that probably you can email me if you need to. ToriOwens@mac.com. There we go. Easy peasy. Yeah.
Tori Owens.
I'm on Substack as well.
Okay.
Love Tori. And then Off-Canon is the podcast with Jonathan. We're on Substack, but it's released to any podcast platform.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was wonderful.
I'm so glad we finally connected with this. We had a time trying to think up the dates and everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We did it.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Hey, you made it to the end. Thanks for listening all the way through on this episode. By the way, if you're not already a supporter, go to spiritualityadventures.com, sign up for one of our monthly supports, and you will receive our bonus content. You'll receive lots of interesting information about our guests. Many of our musicians will do special bonus songs and record a song. So I want to encourage you to do that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Be sure and subscribe. Be sure and share any of the episodes that you like. And be sure and make comments if you like them as well. This helps us get Spirituality Adventures out there to more listeners, more watchers. So whatever platform you're using, subscribe, like, share, make comments, and go to our website, sign up for our team, and be a part of the team support. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.